All right, where's the timer? There, the timer is rolling. So I'm very happy to have Nick, and I want to say I don't want to butcher this. I'm going to give it a shot since I grew up. There are a lot of Italians in my neighborhood. Nick Iacono.
Yeah,
I
you
hope,
got it. There
I
you
hope I
go.
got that right there. So
Yeah.
my roots with a lot of Italian friends has served me well from my youth. So very happy to have you on. You're doing a lot of great things, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to tune in to listen to this one to hear what you have to say about a variety of topics. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is great. And yeah, kudos on the name. You must have some great Italian friends, you know.
Great food. I mean, growing up with the Italian restaurants in my neighborhood, they were everywhere. And obviously, I'm crested 50. I'm 50. I'll be 53 this year. But when the doctors say you got to cut back on the pastas and the breads and the things like that, it's like, God, that's so hard. I know it's harder for the average person, but when you grow up around that stuff and like really homemade
Oh yeah.
Italian food, it's very, very difficult to cut back.
Yeah, then it ruins you for where you go everywhere else. You're like
Hmm.
hypercritical. You're like, all right, well, this food's just okay. And like, no, the sauce is never better than your mother's sauce. You know, it's
Yep.
always the best. But that's why, yeah, that's why you get up early to go work out because you'll feel all the bread and all the pasta the next day if you don't.
You know what's crazy is I was speaking to doctors. I was talking to mine not long ago, and I asked them. I said, "How come all my friends that go to Italy, that will be there a week or 10 days, and they'll just gorge themselves on that stuff, and they never do their hands or knuckles feel like they're swollen or their knees or
Nope.
anything. And they come home, they'll have one bowl, and they feel like shit, for a couple of days. The only thing I can think of is just the stuff they spray on food and the
Yep.
additives and preservatives and everything else that they use in this country. So I better not go to Italy. I might not come back.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So my wife, her last name was Pellicciata. Of course, it's Iacono now. Very Irish family, if you can only imagine. But she's a registered dietitian, and she gives me diet advice for myself when it comes to competing and eating and stuff like that. And she like ruined me, so I make everything pretty much from scratch: bread, pasta. You know, I cook everything, all that kind of stuff because when you actually realize what's in all this food, you're like, well, you wonder why you gain weight
Hmm.
when you feel bad, and then it's tough to just get all the pounds off or build muscles. So everything that I eat is very structured by what my wife does, and at some point, we're going to be a team, and she's going to help give advice to my client when it comes to a performance level. So it's going to be kind of worked out pretty good.
It does make a big difference. When I was still playing for a living, met a guy. We're still friends this day. In fact, I talked to him the other day for 2.5 hours because we hadn't connected in a while. But he had his dad was an orthopedic surgeon, extremity surgeon. So he grew up in the traditional medical field. And but then once he got a strength and conditioning degree. But once he graduated, he went and studied under the Czech system, the Paul Czech system, and learned a lot of the holistic things. And he was the first one that got me to remove carbohydrates, especially refined. Go very basically what everyone today refers to as keto, and the amount of energy, mental energy that I noticed I had late in rounds or late third round, fourth round of a tournament, it was noticeable in that it was like you're burning clean energy. It's what it feels like. That's the easy way to explain it. And I think it was shortly after, it was a year later, I think I got the player of the year here. So it made a huge difference for me. Um,
Yeah,
and,
I agree. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's like I can think of a lot of tournaments where I was dehydrated and I didn't get the necessary, whatever nutrients, vitamins, carbs, anything to give me the energy. And I'd gas out 15, 16, 17, 18. And, I was fighting, I hit big draws at the time and the ball went way more left and you guard against the left and the ball goes right. And it's like, you're like flipping a coin, like, what am I going to do on this thing? So it does make a difference. And I learned that through when I played Waynesboro. Our section match play championships used to be 4 days, round of 64. You go 2-2-2, and you keep going. So I made the semifinals and started playing against Trevor Benzel in the semifinals. We had a great ball striking day, both of us. I think he just ended up beating me 2-1. We were like even one up, and then you win a hole, and then you tie one, and then you win one. So that's just how it works when it gets to that level. And I remember talking to a good friend of mine, Rob Labritz, who was a little bit of a mentor for me in the Mets section. And I called him. I'm like, Rob, I'm so gassed right now. I got 2 more rounds. What do I do? He's like, man, you better carbo load right now because if you eat the wrong thing right now, you think you get protein in you and you think that's going to be good. You wake up and you're going to feel awful. So I ate a lot of pasta, shocker, ate a lot of pasta and bread, and I felt like I was energized for the next 2 rounds, and I made it to the semis because of that. So I think it's a huge deal when it comes to how your body reacts to what you drink, what you eat, and the output that you get is highly correlated to what you put in your system. So it's
Hmm.
you see what you that's why you see all these guys with these not only mental coaches but all these not we'll call it dietitians, but all these uh, doctors that are in functional medicine and saying like when you sleep, when you work out, when the chemicals in your body are kind of spiking, it all kind of correlates to each other, and then when you can really peak at a high level and you find your peak performance there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been doing ice baths for 10, 11 years, and it's the craze now. But I've been trying to do it in the morning. Oh my! No matter how
And you said you hate the cold, and you're going to do an ice bath in the
well,
morning.
when you're around here, because like the weather right now is perfect. I'm 150 miles from Augusta. We're just off Hilton Head. Uh, but especially in the summer, you almost need it just to cool your core down because you're out in the heat.
Yeah,
It just beats the living hell out of you when it's 94 or 5 degrees and 90% humidity. It's just brutal, and you got to do something to keep it down. I just did it because I was interested in that stuff many years ago, and from having a beat up body from playing pro golf and the traveling, you're sleeping in Motel 6 beds, and or you're sleeping on the floor because you're running out of money and all that crazy shit. But just started doing it to try it, and I learned about the endorphin dopamine kick, your neuroepinephrine, pretty quick.
yeah,
But to do it in the morning, because I've had Dr. Tom Seeger on, who's the CEO of Morosco Forge. He's been on a couple of times. We've gotten to be good friends. And he said, "Well, do it in the morning." I texted him the next day. I said, "Are you crazy?"
yeah, yeah.
There's no, because your body hadn't even warmed up yet.
Correct.
And it's speaking of times a day that things happen. Your body's just trying to warm up. That's why I think people drink coffee or tea. It makes them feel better in the morning, outside of the caffeine kick. But God, to do an ice bath in the morning, it's a whole new level of f this. There's like,
Yeah,
oh
I
my
mean,
God.
I'll do almost anything to get myself to be the best version of myself. Unfortunately, ice bath is never going to be within that. I reduce my inflammation many different ways, and that's what I eat and how I work out. And I drink a lot of water, which is a big deal, and just sleep, get a lot of
Hmm.
sleep. I'm like my 9:30 person. You know, 9:30 is almost midnight. Essentially, when the Phillies are done playing, I go right to bed for the most part. And hopefully, it's not a long game, not a lot of walks or whatever it is, but like that's a hell no list for me, unfortunately.
You'd be surprised. Well, you get addicted to it. My girlfriend was the same. I guilted her into doing it. And then she's like, well, God, I'll never get below 50 degrees. And then she got down to 47, and she got down to 45, and then 44. And then, she was doing it for 3 months, 5, 6 days a week. And then she's like, if we were at her place and we missed a day or two, she's like, I can feel it, like noticeably different, that you crave it. You crave
You're
that.
like, I need my ice
Yeah.
bath. I need my ice bath. Yeah.
Like Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, I need that. I need that right now.
Chalky. But enough on the health kick. I'm sure everyone's probably saying, "Well, you guys finally get into the golf." But one question: you're a very good player in college. You played at Elizabethtown College. I think you were, we'll call it all league, for all conference, maybe, in that area. Was there a desire to turn playing professional, or were you strictly focused on becoming a club professional and or coach instructor?
So, not a lot of people really know this, but I didn't really pick up golf until about 2 months prior to my 18th birthday. So I wanted to pursue professional skateboarding. That's what I
Hmm.
wanted to do. So, hence why I kind of made the switch because my body was just breaking down when you're like 16, 17 and getting out of bed and your knees don't work. It's like, something's got
Hmm.
to change. I actually was going to wrestle in college more than anything because I wrestled for about 12 years as well, 10 years as well. So, I went to school to actually be a math teacher, but I picked up golf for my senior year of high school. I made the top six after like 6 months of playing. I was in the top six. I kind of played, all year states, and I walked on to E Town. And within 2 years of playing golf, I broke par at Hershey East during a tryout. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm kind of good at this, maybe. But I really attribute it to all the other sports that I did growing up. I'm a firm believer that you develop these fundamental motor skills that help you build some body awareness, hand awareness, hand-eye
Hmm.
coordination, all these kind of things. That it's like if you can't throw a ball by the time you're 13, it's going to be really tough for you to progress at a certain level. But anyway, when it comes to college, halfway through college, I definitely had the desire to want to play. But my mentor, and still my mentor to this day, John Dunigan, who you've had on here,
Mm-hmm.
before, you know, he really got me into wanting to coach. Like, I'm very competitive, almost to a fault. Like, I want to be. I don't really accept mediocrity. So a lot of people take my like being trying to be confident and trying to win as best I can as arrogance. It's just not the case. I'm just very competitive, but I'm willing to help anybody, reach the goal that they want. But I went to school to be a math teacher and I got decent at golf. And then I realized that I wasn't that smart at math because those classes get pretty darn difficult
Yeah, quick.
when the numbers when there's no more numbers anymore and you're just doing proofs on pages to where it's 3 pages and there's maybe a couple numbers on there. I'm like, I don't know about this. And it's not because I didn't try hard. It's just because it was that difficult. So I ended up majoring in econ the last 2 years, and I I thought I was good enough in the sense to play professional golf. I just didn't know what level. So I played at a Philadelphia PGA level, and I just realized these guys are really good, but I really had a knack for teaching. And even my mother was an early education teacher for 30 years. So I'll say it ran in the family a little bit, but I'm like I feel like everybody has like a puzzle to them and you just got to figure it out. And that really intrigued me. I love, physics. I love, numbers. I love math. And then being with John, it was like a nice little mesh of, technology and coaching and teaching and all these things. So I knew that my teaching and coaching would help me, pay the bills. But
Mm-hmm.
like still to this day, I'm working out 3 times a week. I'm with the trainer. I'm working on my golf game. I know I don't have as much time as I'd like, but I'm understanding even to this day how much more I tick, and I still compete. I feel like at a high level. It's just a matter of I'm competing against people that play a lot and hit balls a lot, and I just don't do that too much. So I kind of match the expectations with what I can do. Like I can shoot low 60s, I have, but it's just you gotta be okay with what you have, and dance with the blonde you brought the prom with. Essentially, that's what Don Dunning always say. So it's kind of like I wish I was really that good, but what gives me more satisfaction is seeing my students really get to that highest level and really start winning and competing, that's the satisfaction I love helping people in that way.
Yeah, there seems to be a bell that kind of goes off, or at least a common sense hits you. If you have a deep desire to play, but you're getting a lot of satisfaction, and more so from seeing someone else either get the ball airborne or break 100 for the first time, get a college scholarship, fill in the blank of what that student that chose to work with you is trying to accomplish, as opposed to shooting 65 yourself, or winning a local tournament or a section tournament. If you're getting more enjoyment out of helping somebody, that's a telltale sign that coaching and instructing might be the path for you. If you're helping these people get better, and if you're not getting the joy and it becomes work to play, then the decision becomes much easier, or at least it's in front of you.
Yeah.
I know I faced that. I always got more satisfaction helping somebody than I did winning tournaments, regardless of what level I played at. I didn't get all the way to the PGA Tour. I missed a Q school a few times, and then the body just started giving out. I had a few chances to win some very big events, but I always felt more fulfilled uh, helping somebody, just seeing the joy in their face and sending them home. And then, we come back and we start on something else. Now the bar has changed and now you got to get better. I always tell the higher handicap, they always say, if I could just break 100, I'd be happy. I said, okay, we're going to have this conversation right now. It doesn't matter. You're never going to be happy. You're going to want to break 90. They're going to break 80. They're going to break 70. So don't base your happiness in golf by breaking your next barrier. Just enjoy being outside, enjoy your time with friends, and having fun.
Yeah, and it's tough to think that way. I tell a lot of people you should run a race and you don't know where the finish line is. I mean, it's really I mean,
Yes.
that's kind of like I know that like I feel like if you have like everybody has end goals, and but in order to achieve those goals, you can't think about the goal itself. You got to think about the ways that get you better, and you start understanding, how do you work at your highest level essentially. So, like I do have goals in mind when it comes to my coaching and my teaching and my playing and all these things, but I understand that that's like you got to take one step first and then put the other foot in front of the other. And those are the little battles that you get within golf. And that's why this game is so great, because, you could take 5 steps backwards really quick because you might get a little ahead of yourself. You're not in the moment. There's all these little things that really can like deviate your attention of what you're trying to do. So that's why I hate to use a Philly term, and I really hate to use this very specific one, is you got to trust the process. And we're not going to talk about the 76ers because we'll never get back to golf. But you got to really trust the process. What do you do with your body? What do you do with your game? How do you train the skills while also fostering the technique? And all those things kind of mesh in the golf. But that's why it's one of these imperfect games where, you can win with your worst swing, but you could hit the ball awesome and score terrible. There's so many different ways to just be a really good golfer. It's not just hitting perfect shots all the time, because quite frankly, the idea of consistency doesn't exist as much as you think when it comes to just talking to the average player. That bell curve is shaped a lot different than what people see on TV and what they project as, this is what you should be doing every single time.
Yeah, I have to remind a lot of students. So when you're watching golf on TV, you got to remember you're watching the leaders. You're watching the top 20
The
in the
outlier.
tournament. Yes. So but you're watching the top 20 of every week. Tiger kind of skewed everything, and even the Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler now, Mickelson back in his era. But you can't watch the prodigies and compare yourself to them that you, and even at your level, if you're shooting 90 and you have a blow up around 105, okay, that's your level. The pros do it as well. The one kid today I saw, I don't remember who it was. They shot 90 in a Masters. I mean, I could just
So
imagine.
it was Nick Dunlap.
Yes. I mean, and I imagine someone who's used to shooting on average 68 to 70, and they shoot 90. So that's 20 shots higher than their average. And for the listeners out there, if you're a 15 handicap, it's not just 20 straight strokes. You got to imagine the exponential factor from a tour pro shooting 90. It would be like a nine, someone who averages 90 shooting like 125 or 130. I mean, it's that big a
Yeah.
difference. It might even be bigger. But he'll go out there and he'll probably come back tomorrow and play well. But I know he's probably furious or disappointed, but he knows he's been through it enough to be at the level he is. This is a journey, man. You're gonna
And
have
also,
some really bad days.
and maybe if you're at like your college tournament shooting 90, whatever, but you're also at Augusta shooting 90. So it's like, I know it's not great, but can it really be that bad? I mean, like I mean, if I shoot 100 at Augusta, I'm just happy that I'm just there at that point in time. But it's like even JT one year, I believe he shot an 81 and a 59 within like a couple weeks of each other. And you look at you look at that standard deviation of scores. He went from here to here. Like the 59 is just as likely as his 82. But that's just what they understand. So I think the average golfer, the best thing to understand is when you say, I want to break 80 all the time. I'm like, well, even like I'm a +2 and sometimes I don't break 80. Like it happens. So when you take that pressure off yourself and you reduce that expectation, I think my biggest thing with golfers is that I hate when you're on the first tee and you think, all right, I'm going to shoot this score today. Unless you're in the last round and you have to put something up, that's a totally different situation. But if you're going out and you're thinking a score, you're already putting the pressure yourself on that first tee shot, that first iron shot, and that first putt. And then you're like, well, I just made a bogey. I can't use that bogey later on or whatever it is. So whatever the way you think about it, like you either have bogeys and you got rid of your worst shots. So you're like, okay, I know I'm going to hit a lot more better shots. Call it like Sam Snead. I believe he kind of thought that way. I wasted all my bad shots, so I'm good now. But you can't take you can't put that pressure on yourself. It's just
No, the thing with the more experienced golfers, I'll call them, or the people at least who have gotten better, a lot better over time from where they started. It's easier for them to understand because they've traversed this path before. This, okay, I've been down this. I know I shot 92. I usually shoot 76 or 7. I shot 92. Okay, it's going to come back.
Mhm.
I know that I'm not going to shoot 92 tomorrow. I'm not that bad. I just happen to have a day. I tripped a couple times. But it just, for everybody out there, it's hard for them to wrap their head around. I think they get emotionally excited. I think that's one of the draws, that we all get emotionally excited to play. And regardless of what skill level you're at, like, uh, Those guys get to Augusta, they're all super excited. I mean, they've all seen it since
Oh,
they were
they're jacked
kids.
up. They're like,
Yeah,
I'm
they're all
here.
jacked up, and now it's got to be massively deflating to shoot yourself out of it. I mean, I think they all just would want to get in contention. I think all of them most of them want to get out the first tee without shitting
Oh,
themselves.
that tee
but
shot. Yeah.
but after that, I think the goal is
Can I
to make
start
the
on
cut.
10 and just snipe hook a ball and I'll be fine? Like, because
Mm-hmm.
I'll just rope hook one and be like, all right, we're good. All right, let's keep it going. And then you got 11. You're like, okay, this is fun.
You mentioned John. I'd love to have him on a couple times. In fact, he and they were on a couple weeks ago. I think about is it 8 weeks already? It's hard to believe. He and Dr. Will. How did you get connected with John?
So my first golf lesson ever was with John Dunigan.
Good
So
place to
my
start.
so yeah, so the way I got in the golf aside, from the part after that, so I kind of drop. I still skateboard a little bit to this day, every now and then, not enough to like ruin my golfing. Like I'm not going to go
I don't
out.
want to break
I'm
your
not going to
wrist
go
or
do some
anything.
handrails and then go like, oh, I got a tournament play on Monday because I'd be whatever. But anyway, so my dad one time I was on the couch. I'm like kind of like off of a lot of sports, just trying to recoup a little bit. He looked at me dead in the eye, said, "Get a collared shirt on, get shorts on. You have a golf lesson. You have no choice." And
Hmm.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me, Dad. Like golf is, you know, we'll say it's for losers. We'll use the PC. It's the worst sport ever.
Nerds,
And
dorks.
yeah, for nerds, all that kind of. As I'm wearing, as I'm calling myself now, I'm grateful to be a nerd at this point. But I went to Hartfeld National in Avondale, Pennsylvania. I'm born and raised in Hocassin, Delaware, which is right on the border. And we go to Hartfeld, and I get a lesson with Dunnigan. And it didn't take long to see a nice high little baby draw. And I'm like, that's cool. Like losers don't do that. That is cool. Nerds don't do that. That is a cool thing. So it was really an easy transition because when I would skateboard for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and I really would, my mom or my brother would pick me up at like midnight in Newport, Delaware. Maybe not the safest place in the world, but it's skate park. They'd have midnight like skate park days, and we'd skateboard to there. So I needed a void to fill. And if you talk to my wife, I can't sit still. The fact that you have me in a chair right now is a miracle in itself right now. But it was a perfect recipe. So golf, you got to work at it, all that kind of stuff. So I started just practicing and playing. So it turned to be like I used to be Len's son. Now you were Nick's father. So because they saw me more at the club than they saw my dad. So that's how it started. And then, I get lessons with John now. And, I've been a little back and forth a couple of times, but I'm with John of recent a ton. And, it's he knows me so well. So he really gets me in ship shape pretty quick. And we like talking back and forth a lot because he knows I'm a golf pro, but sometimes he has to tell me like, be a student, try not to, think
Hmm.
take your teaching hat off and put the student hat on a little bit. So that's just really how our introduction was. Just I had no choice to get a golf lesson, and that was it.
Forced into it.
It's not a great story, but people ask me how to get into golf. Like, well, my dad just forced me, and I had no other choice. So I don't know what to tell you.
Have you been used at all their new app, the Practice Coach?
I do. Yeah, it's great. I mean, not to give him a shameless plug, but it's fantastic, especially because when I teach a lot of golfers that are, CEOs of companies, they
Hmm.
have kids, so you have a lot of type of constraints. You have obviously physical constraints, which we can talk about that at some point. You have equipment constraints, which is another whole thing, but you got time constraints, you have environment constraints. So based on how much time that you have, you need to structure your practice a certain way. So it was really great for me too because I might have 15 20 minutes maybe a day, like that's it because someone's late to a lesson or I decide to get there early and beat the mowers to hit a couple golf balls. But it structures based on my skill level, the time that I have, and what I work on, aside from a couple other things. So it's fantastic, and it's like it's your own coach, 365 days out of the year, 24/7. So you realize that, and a lot of people always say, well, how do I transfer the skills from the range to the golf course? I'm like, here you go. That layering of contextual interference, that layering of practice variability, the block practice ran, all these things go into based on your skill level and based on what you're trying to attain with your golf swing. So what we actually do, me and Joanna Coe, I'm sure you've heard the name.
Hmm.
I call her my work wife. I'm her work husband, but my work wife. We do a skill building clinic, practice like the pro clinic. We do it for free. Usually we have like 30 to 40 members, and we talk about what you do after a lesson because, the content's important, but if you can't complement the content, which means how you practice and transfer the skills, understand how to scrimmage, all these things, then you don't really see the transfer because a lot of the time you don't really heighten the stress level or the anxiety when you practice because you're hitting on the land of no repercussions, which is the driving range. And of every sport that you play in, right, you play and practice to compete on a soccer field. That's all the same. Baseball, it's all the same. You lacrosse, everything, wrestling. But golf, you got a range, a practice tee, a putting tee, whatever it is, and then the golf course. So that bridge that one has to kind of walk over is something that we try to help our students a lot with, and the app is great for that reason alone.
Hmm. Yeah, it was fascinating as they explained it. I mean, we had a long episode. In fact, I think John, we went so long.
No, not with John. A long episode. No,
Well,
no.
well, John actually the one that had to check out early because it was way past his bedtime. I could tell his eyes were getting a little red, and he's like, "Hey guys, I got to check out." So, but it was very good, very fascinating. I said, "I wish I could do it. I just been my body's so banged up. I haven't been able to really play." And but I really want to use that to just to see how it works. The AI in golf with what Sasha and Marty did with the stack, how it automatically computes your training sessions, and then
Mhm.
what John and Doc Will are doing with practice coach. It's just I think it's a glimpse into the future of what's going to happen with golf. John Sinclair was on 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he said, AI, it's not even coming; it's here in golf, and most don't even realize it yet. Of course, he's got all the toys and the gadgets and the gadgets and gizmos. He's going to see it a lot sooner. But it's very interesting. The one thing that I have questions on AI is it's only going to be as good as the info that's input into it. And I learned that a long time ago. I spent a lot of time in the club fitting sector, and the computer system that we use, the guy I work for, he wrote it. And what would skew numbers is if somebody's clubs were so off, let's say they're three flexes at that, and we were using 10 cycles as a flex back then. So let's say they're 30, 31 degrees. I'm sorry, 30, 31 cycles off from where we knew they should have been. It would really throw the numbers, or could throw the numbers off of what the computer spit back out to us. Now, he had been doing it at that time for 37 years, so he had worked through that on his own. To me, it was new, so I had to learn that. But as I got into that, and I had Ishmael Ben Hayoun on, and Ishmael does a lot of consulting for club companies, the OEMs, and
Mhm.
it's all AI. And he said they can cut their time for development down because he can put the club in the model and tell them, here's the aerodynamics, here's what it's going to do, it's going to sound like, et cetera, et cetera. Can really cut their trial and error time down by at least 9 months.
Mhm.
And I asked him that. I said that one issue that is coming with AI is, what if the data input is skewed? Now he said there'll be so much data in that it will siphon off the extremes.
But will it?
Well, you hope. Yeah, I
You
don't know.
hope.
I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm like, you look at the medical industry. We were talking about medical or fun stuff, ice baths and crazy shit when we open, and in diet. But a lot of these studies, when they do medical studies, it's like, well, do this, and you go back to them and say, well, I had a dear friend. He missed his heart medication for like 3 months because right when COVID started, he couldn't get it, and then he was across state lines, and we can't do this, et cetera, et cetera. And then he started feeling better. Like his joints stopped hurting and all this stuff. He's like feeling way better. And he goes back to his doctor and he said, well, when they do these studies, they take the median or the average, and they take the top 10% out and the bottom 10% out, and they come up with, it's like, yeah, but it's 10% on each side. So it's 20% of 350 million people. That's 70 million people that you're eliminating and saying, well, you should use this because it falls in the range. It's like, so what's that going to do to AI? That's the question. I'm not trying to be a naysayer of technology by any means to anybody out
No.
there listening. I'm just trying to say, if we're going to use it, let's make sure that it's right, or at least work through it. And not, the goal is to continue to making it better and not just say AI is the end all of end all
Yeah,
at, at,
I
at,
agree.
at X level.
And remember, science is there just to prove you're wrong. It's not so much to prove you're right for the most part. So, I use a bunch of technology. Swing Catalyst. I have KVS, just 3 DOF, not 6 DOF. I've been on 6 DOF systems and stuff like that. AMM. I've been on a lot of those things, and you know, accuracy is very important, right? So, again, AI is going to be as good as what you input it, but you know, I remember very vividly a lesson that I was shadowing with Jason Bale friend of mine at Jupiter Hills. He's
Yeah,
taken
Jason
the
was here for a long
yeah,
time. Great
taking the
guy.
world by storm. He's such a good dude. He's such a great coach. I'm just glad that I'm allowed to go over and listen and talk to him and really confide in him and really get honest feedback from him. But I remember a lesson very specifically that you know you could have swore this student wasn't so much forward flexion, in his golf swing. You looked at it, you're like, that camera says, and cameras 2D, 3D, that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
nother thing. But you would have swore that if you saw this person, you need to get them, more extension. You get him on K vest, he had 5 degrees of negative spine angle. You would have swore it was the opposite. So my issue is that, especially when you look at, markerless tools, like I hope it's good. My goal is to not put anybody, like not know that you're actually on 3D. That's my goal. I love, where we could potentially go, but AI is really just rapid Googling, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's 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 machine learning. It's not really like it's taking what you think you look like and say what you are. But when you look at the deviations that sometimes present itself of a couple degrees here and there, that could be the difference between a tour card and you never heard of this guy before. So i'm I'm not, like, I'm very open minded, and I think the best thing to do as a coach is to never be closed minded and work in certainties, because the next person that comes into your room, they're going to throw you way off guard, and they're going to do the opposite of what that person did, even though you think he's going to react a different way. So that's why when I do a lot of my assessments, I use my 3D stuff, because I'm like, okay, someone is going to show me that they're not actually doing something what I think he's doing. And the key word is think, right? I want to know what this person's doing, so that way, if I use a certain system, I could use it as a baseline and get an idea of, if I don't have the marker 3D capabilities, I can kind of go from there and be like, okay, this is your ball flight. I know why the ball's curving this way, because you're getting into this habit. Let's kind of get back to here, and maybe we can use something else. But um, I like accuracy. Like that's my jam. I want to know what this person's doing, because the higher level golfer you get, there's going to be a lot. I feel like a lot of the time the higher level golfers, they search a lot. There's a lot of flashlights everywhere and
Mm-hmm.
magnifying glasses. But when you physically screen somebody and then you put them through a couple assessments, you're finding out all these things, but then you get into, why is this person actually doing what they're doing? And then you just see everything. It's like a bomb goes off. You're like, okay, I know really what you're doing now. There's no guessing. And then when you see not immediate success, because that's not learning, you still got to go through things to consider what success is, and everybody's a little different. But you really start understanding how someone ticks and how they move, and also why, when this person comes to you and said they tried this, this, and this, why it didn't work at all, and why it was fighting against what they were trying to really accomplish.
That is one of the that last part you said is one of the things that I have discussed with high level golf coaches who are friends of mine. We used to debate about this, and this is when TrackMan was had just come out, or been out a couple of years, and was making a big push into golf, and a couple of these guys were big TrackMan guys, and they said, well, you're just anti-tech or science. I said, that's not true.
That's
I
not
said, because I wasn't big, because again, when I was doing the club thing, the guy I worked for, he could fit somebody, and my brother was the fitter at Belfair. Ended up, now I think he's a regional director for Cobra. But players would go to see my brother and get on TrackMan, and all the launch and spin numbers were spot on, or within the window that they were supposed to be in, based off their speeds and everything else. And everyone would say, how can he do this? I said, well, number one, he's an engineer, and two, basically he knows physics as good as a doctorate. So, and he knew the body. He was an Eastern Seaboard bodybuilding champion, so he knew the body extremely well. You know all these things, and you start to put it together, and you know how the clubs are designed and how they're built and how shafts work and all these other things. You can do that. Now, I'm not saying that coaches need to go out and learn all these things to the degree that this person did, or many, or not many, but a few people out there in the world are. But you do have to have some understanding of what science takes precedence at what particular time. So, like for example, when does the structure of the body take precedence over the physics of the club moving in space? Meaning, if somebody has tighter facets versus wider facets, the wider facet person is going to be able to have a bigger range of motion in their turn. So if you've got tighter facets, you better have great range of motion in your hips. So as a someone might be saying, well, you're doing this with the club and it needs to do this, but here's where I think you need to go. If you better you better have a general understanding of if they can go to that place. Because if they can't, a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, they're not going to be playing golf.
Oh no.
They're
And
going to be laid up, and they're going to say, "Who did that to you?" Well, this guy did, or this girl did, and now everyone looks at you. And I mean, you could do damage to your student and yourself, your reputation, your career, if you don't know what you're doing and you try to make it sound like you are. To your point, if you think you know everything and you're not open to learning that you might be wrong, you might have more to learn, you might have to tweak what you know, then you're gonna hit a wall one day, and it's not gonna be good.
that's why everybody has their own way of teaching. They have their own methodologies. They have their own ways, whatever. You know, I teach people, not golf. So I need to understand what you're doing and how you're thinking. Dunigan and I talk about intention and attention. What are you actually trying to do, and what are you focusing on? Because if your intention is misaligned and you're focusing on the wrong thing, then you wonder why you don't see the progress that you have. I had this guy come in, and Alex Hoyser ended up just playing golf with him one time in Marion, and he was searching a lot. Did a whole screen on him, and I got him on KVest. And actually, before I got him on KVest, I'm like, I think I know what I'm going to see, but obviously, I'm like, I want to see what you're doing. I want to see how you're moving eccentrically, concentrically. I want to see your bends. I want to see all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the say coaches was trying to say get him to load up on his right side, load up on his right side. He had very little ankle mobility on his right side. He had very little internal hip rotation mobility on his right side, but he was very good thoracically with his rotation. So, but he was very good. Actually, it was kind of funny. He was really good, kind of going left on this, so internal on the left side, but he really wasn't good going right. So I'm like, let's just monitor what you're doing with your chest, because I'm like, all right, well, if you look at the stable and mobile joints on your right side, something is going to like crack. Something's going to take the brunt. So I'm like, I'm kind of already going to know what I'm going to see here. So right hip was bad. Right ankle didn't have the great mobility. His foot wasn't even flared. It was almost toe in a little bit. So he started swaying right and getting here. And then he was trying to hit a cut, and he was getting pull hooks all day.
Hmm.
So we're like, okay, we're going to use your thoracic mobility to your advantage. So then that way, from there, you can move in the downswing the way you want. And like, it's funny, we talk a lot. And he's like, I actually enjoy golf now because I am not He's like, I'm okay with the certain things that I'm doing because that's a look and it's not a bias. It's just how you move. So I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. But I do care about this because that's probably going to help A, B, and C as well. So by finding the root cause through screens, use some kinetic testing, some kinematic assessments, all this stuff. I mean, it was like gangbusters immediately. Now he's getting back into competing because he's one of these golfers that, it's so funny. He has like 20 degrees of hip rotation and 70 degrees of upper body rotation, and he can carry at 320.
Hmm.
It's wild. It's wild stuff. But he's so strong, but he was trying to use certain parts of his body that he couldn't use. And then on the downswing, it's like if I had to take a pick of how you load on your backswing and how you load on your downswing, a lot of the time I'm going to take the backswing and understanding how you move and how you load. Because at least from there, an athlete's going to react to a good position where if you're not in a good position, your subconscious is like, whoops, that's not going to work. And you're going to start feeling quick or whatever you're going to feel to try to, self-organize, and it just doesn't work. So I like seeing like everybody has pieces to a puzzle that you have to try. And I love like digging and trying to figure it out. Like I'll stand up in the middle of like the day, or not middle of the day because I'm working, but like middle of the night, and I'll do like, oh, like I just thought of something for my student, and I'll tell her, and she's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, yeah, because I am crazy, but it's like that's part of trying to understand somebody, because whoever comes in your room, you can help them. But if you don't think that way and you try to put someone in buckets in that sense, then you're going to help some certain people. And that, yeah, one or two of your students are going to get really, really good. But then there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to get so good because you're trying to put everybody in the same type of swing. And I just honestly, to each their own, but I just don't believe in that.
No, I think that everyone is familiar, at least in the coaching world, with Mike Adams' system. But when I had EA Tisler, and I was my cousins own a golf course a mile down the road from Olympia Fields called Flossmoor Golf Club. So I was up there last summer and I called EA, said, I'm going to be in town. I come over and hang out with you for a little bit. Yeah, he said, sure, come on. So I got to watch him teach some. And his I haven't had Mike Adams on yet, so I only speak. I will speak of this ignorantly, admittedly. From what I've seen on Mike's and read on Mike's system, I think EA's is a little more in depth, maybe much more in depth, where he has a full spectrum of. You can have deviations to whatever trail hand grip, instead of the three, you can have a variation in there as it goes on this continuum. But speaking to how somebody's soft tissue is adhered in their body, how much shoulder pitch should they have, all these things plays a role in how an individual can swing. And I don't see a lot of people talking about that. I think it's good that they brought it to the forefront. Now, someone might be out there and saying, well, I can disprove that, and here's why I think this should be this way. Okay, then let's continue that discussion going forward. And if someone's out there, I'd love to have him on the show and I hope to have Mike Adams on at some point to talk about his system. But I think with the mounds and mountains of data that we have now, and you've seen the list of people I've had on, and people who are listening have heard them, that I think we're all in agreement that what we know now is, even with all these big mounds, is everyone is individual. So somebody might need to load more on their right leg. Somebody might prefer to load or pivot around their left leg. Someone might pivot around their spine. Whatever it is, that's going to be that person. For whatever reason, that's how they are. Now, you wouldn't force the trail leg loader in the stack and tilt, and you wouldn't force the front leg loader into a Jimmy Ballard type move off the ball, more frontal plane, or what John's working on, Tattersall, is more frontal plane torque. So it's like, okay, now we have these mountains of data. How do we determine which one of this data gets applied at this particular time for this person? I think
Yeah.
that's where everything's going. It's like, okay, now we have billions of data points. Now, how do we decipher which one gets used for different individual? I think that's the next foray of coaching. There's so
Yeah.
much. It's like, how do we get there? It's like, holy shit, if we thought tech mountain was big, look at the data mountain that
Yeah.
now we got to sort through.
And I think, and Dunigan and I talked about this the other day, certainty, absolute certainty it can be a big problem. So when you're absolutely certain about something, and a lot of these guys are my friends, and I talk to them, and they're all great coaches. All of them they're all great minds in golf, and they can really help people out. But that's why I just try not to be. I try to be as open minded as I can and just understand. So when then I explain to somebody, say the pros and the cons about how your pelvis moves with this type of golf or this type of golf, then you understand, like, okay, that makes sense for them, but it might not make sense for this person. And
Mm-hmm.
it happens a lot. That's why you see coaches, and I'm sorry, you see coaches maybe flip their ideologies and their methodologies, and you see students go from coach to coach. It's, part of it is that, change does take time, but a lot of it is that we, again, science is there to prove you wrong, not to prove you're right in that sense. So if you think it's absolutely certain and you're the only one that's right, then you got it. You're walking on a little bit of a tightrope, and that's why it's like, I think going through some, imposter syndrome and trying to figure out where you are in the world of golf and where you're coaching is great, because then you start learning more about other people's ideas and thoughts and how that could mix into your coaching and your teaching. But it's tough when you think that, okay, this is the only way and that's how you got to do it. It's not a good sell.
No,
You got to have some give and take. Like, you work as a team.
I think Mark Twain had the quote, the famous quote, that it's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know that ain't so. So what you're so certain about that is correct, that is going to be the thing that gets you in trouble, because eventually someone is going to prove you wrong, or technology, or there's something, uh, knowledge and people just growing and learning more can eventually uh, prove you wrong. I mean, look at just course management as a simple example. Now I know the game and the equipment and everything has changed. So the send it mentality is there. Where when I was younger, if a hole
Full
was
send.
under 400 yards and it was tight, you'd hit your fairway wood or your 1 iron or your 3 iron. I mean, it was just that was the generic game plan. But now you got decade and you got all these other systems that say no, send it. Uh, Mark Brody, the closer you are to the hole, the odds are that you're going to shoot a lower score. And
Hmm.
so just things change, maybe from outside influences like technology. I'm sure has changed a lot of how the players swing. Everyone's swinging harder because the harder you hit the ball. The further it's going to go, and the less it does spin. But back when I was a kid, the harder you hit a ball, that it just upshot more. So
Yeah,
I know.
I didn't have that problem. I didn't. I started with the titanium faces. I the what did I start with? The TaylorMade. Oh my God, what was that club? Even before Rocket Balls. That's how. What was it? They had the black face on. I can't even think what it was called. But yeah, I start with titanium faces, baby. I don't know what any of that other stuff was.
As far as someone who's, because you're on the Young Golf Digest Young Teachers list for three or four times, I think you've been on it. For somebody who is more or less grown up around and with technology, how do you continue your education outside of technology so that you don't get stuck only looking at tech? And you're looking at TrackMan, you're looking at swing catalyst, you're looking at whatever technology you're using, like every swing. Because I've had some of the best in the world on here, and I've asked them, how much do you use your tech? And almost across the board, they say we'll use it to get the baseline of what someone's doing at the beginning, and then we'll use it at the end after we did what I thought was the prescription, and to see how much they've changed. So someone who kind of grew up with technology, how do you go about not getting stuck only utilizing it and continue learning outside of what tech has given us?
Yeah, I think I use it when I need it for the most part. If there's someone that's coming in and they're being very adamant, like, look, I want to do this, like, I'm not going to have some 30 handicapper on, say, K vest or whatever it is, but maybe swing catalyst can really be beneficial in understanding pressure, something simple. Like, there's layers to technology that you can use with people. Like, I use technology, but I externalize a lot of my swing cues, and I try really hard at doing that. Like, if I need someone to say get their chest in a better position, I'm like, what's your favorite superhero? Can you point the Batman logo that way instead of that way? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what John has really taught me about externalizing swing cues. Now, there are some internal cues that can very much help, but it's easier to think about how to, say, turn a screwdriver than supinate the trail arm. You know what I mean? It's like there's things you do. So I definitely use it if I have the time, because in the country club world too, sometimes you just don't have the time because someone schedules a half-hour lesson. So I try to implement caveman launch monitors, alignment sticks, golf balls,
Mm-hmm.
understanding my 30, 60, 90 triangle to get, say, 30 degrees of launch with a wedge or whatever I need. So I definitely like using it as a baseline, because the thing that I like doing is I like having a case study. I go back to that kid, Alex, that I just taught. Like, I'm going to do a case study with him because when he came to me, he didn't know how his body needed to move. So we did a movement screen, we did a kinematic screen, we did a kinetic screen, all these things. So it was very applicable to him because he couldn't find the answer. And when you look at his swing, you were kind of sure what he was doing, but you needed to be sure. So I use it when I need to, but it's great to get a baseline understanding, because you got to start somewhere. You got to understand how the person's moving, and if they have some sort of efficiency problem anywhere. There's a kinetic problem that can cause a kinematic problem. A kinematic problem causes a kinetic problem because they can interchange a lot. So I use it when I need to, but I definitely don't use it all the time. But there is the technology I do use every single day is TrackMan by far, because ball flight laws are ball flight laws. I have 8 handicappers that don't know actually what a face and path for a draw is. So part of it is
Mm-hmm.
like, well, sometimes the swing makes the shot, but the shot makes the swing. So you got to know both. So once you understand how to curve the golf ball on purpose, it's like, well, that might be a little bit easier. But again, yeah, to answer your question, baseline understandings. If I can get some readings after the fact, that's great. But that's only telling me that that person changed within that hour. That's not success yet. That doesn't say that you've gotten better. You might hit some better shots in front of me, but you haven't learned anything yet. You have to then afterwards, if I see some time, then I reassess and say, okay, let's see, based on our baseline, did you improve in a certain direction? So I like to have some time to see if that person's improved. And then if we do see improvement, great. And if they're hitting it really well, like the next time someone comes in and they're like, I'm hitting it really well, I'm like, we're going to get you on technology right now. I'm going to swing bank this. I'm going to get a video so I know if we need to refer back to any type of movement pattern that maybe you get back into a tendency, I know that this is the way to go. And that's another big way of using technology. If you think you only go for a golf lesson when you're hitting it bad, I do not believe that. And that's not a money grab. My job is to make you better. My job is to not make money. That comes hand in hand with just having people enjoy this great game more and more. It's like you don't just do it just because you get a paycheck. If you truly love something, all that stuff happens. You don't have to
Hmm.
worry about that. But if someone's hitting the ball really well, I'm like, give me 5 minutes. I'm not going to charge you. I just want to get you on Swing Cat or KVS. So that way, if it hits the fan again, I know exactly what's going on with you.
Yeah, you need to build that library. We have your bad swings because you've come in when you're playing bad, but you need to
Yeah.
come in when you're swinging. Just call me up. Come in like you
Or
said,
send me a video, something.
five
Give me
five
video.
minutes, something that I can log it, so we can then, as you go up or down with your game, we know where you were, so we have basically, as we're talking about technology and data, we have the data to show where you were when you were playing bad. Now we know where you were when you're playing good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you got to zero, now let's say you want to get to +3. Okay. Now we know where you're good at zero. We know where you were kind of off at a 5 handicap. Now here's some fine tuning or some tweaks that we need to make to get you to +3, or
Yeah.
again, whatever handicap someone wants to get to. But it's, we have something to reference. I think, like the line on the ball, that when putting, that was debated over and over. And coaches were posting on it. My Golf Spy was posting on it, and they all did these studies. And I'm sitting there watching all this stuff. I said, at a minimum, the ball gives the golfer some feedback. Okay, is there, if they roll it end over end, the chances that they hit the ball square to the intended target line were pretty good. So at that point, we know it's not a face to path or a path ratio. Now it's maybe an alignment or green reading issue. If they wobble the ball, okay, now we have a better idea what the problem is. We can eliminate some other things. If it's X problem, so, but nonetheless, the line gave on shorter putts, obviously not on 30-footer, 20-footers. That there's too many variables involved in that. But if somebody can put a line on, and at least we can now have a better understanding. That's the most generic version in my mind, of what you and I are talking about. Here's your
Yeah.
bad swing. Here's your good swing. Now we have some parameters, or we have some knowledge to go off, and we're not just throwing darts in the dark.
And that line thing is interesting because actually studying TPI a lot, you got to understand, well, you right eye dominant, are you cross dominant, you have sensory suppression, you have motor suppression. So when I do putting lessons now, I do some visual testing immediately. I'm seeing if you have isophoria or isophoria. I'm seeing, like, do you perceive targets closer or farther away? So like for me, I always like to beta test something on me and understand, like, okay, why do I like I'm a very good putter. If anybody asks me, like, hey, what's Nick's best part of his game, they're gonna be like, he can put the daylights out. I picked up a fly swatter from Golf Galaxy, had made it 1 degree loft. That was 15 years ago for $60. It's still my same putter. But I'm like, why do I like opening my stance? Why do I not? Why do I hate using the line? So I started testing with TPI my visual skills, my visualization skills, and I realized that my visualization skills are so much better than actually lining up the ball. That when I lined up the ball, like I could visualize my target better than how much I lined up that golf ball. So what I do is when I use PuttLab, someone asked me, should I use a line on the ball? I'm like, I have no idea. We're going to do some testing and I'm going to see if you like using a line. But obviously, if your speed's a problem, and there's varying factors, like you said, your speed can be off because your line's really off, and you're trying to
Mhm.
figure out other things. There's always these extenuating circumstances, but it's when you start realizing why you putt the way you do, and you put in the buckets in the sense of you're built this way, and that's why you putt this way. That's why people tilt their head this way and tilt their head this way, because maybe they can't take any information out of their left eye and they take all the information out of their right eye, or whatever it is. So that's why I always liked opening my stance and not using a line and putting the ball middle to maybe a hair back in my stance, and I putt the daylights out. But the minute I got more square and used the line, it was a disaster. I couldn't hit the hole from 5 feet. But now it's like there's a reason why I do the things that I do, and there are reasons why people do the things that they do based on limitations, based on just based on things that they're trying to improve on that they can't do, and they try to understand. They get their wires crossed and they're trying to figure it out, and they can't do it based on compensations. All these things.
Yeah, if somebody, I would not ever tell somebody to put a line on that hates it, unless we're doing a drill. And I say, I need to see some feedback, because I want to see
Something, yeah.
what
Or
you're
maybe
doing.
you just need to work on your setup. Something that gives you a cue or a reference point. Like I've used my lines sometimes in practice, I really don't practice putting. I really don't, because it's like I feel like I'm pretty good. And I mean, I use
Spinning your
Aimpoint.
wheels in the mud.
I mean, I'm just kind of there. Yeah, dual positive traction, one wheel. I'm just trying to like. But sometimes, every now and then, I put a line on the ball just to make sure that I'm actually not too square with my feet. Because when I start getting my feet too square and I feel like I'm parallel to that line, that's actually when I feel like I'm putting worse. So I'm like, okay, drop my left foot back, and then I just quantify how much I do it. Maybe it's like a two tees or half a golf ball, drop it back. I'm like, okay, great. Now I'm good. Then I don't use the line anymore, and I'm done.
Yeah, there's so many things, and that's where I get into some of these discussions with some of our colleagues, and I'll say they'll ask me a question. I say, well, it depends. They go, what do you mean it depends? I say, okay, well, what are you referring to? Because there's so many pieces of this puzzle there and playing variables, and you don't know until you're working with somebody. You got to talk to them. You know, the first I used to teach at a golfers college here locally, and I used to tell there was mostly guys. There were a few girls in there, and I used to say, you better. The first thing that I taught them was come up with your list of 10 questions. That was the very first class of basically I call it teaching 101. Come up with your questions, because what are you going to do? Most If you're going to get a position at a private club, most of your students are going to be older, and obviously they've lived through life. And if they've had an injury, a surgery to their knee, their hip, their back, and you're trying to teach them to do something that you
Mhm.
watched Tiger Woods do or Rory McIlroy do, guess what's going to happen to that person? So you need to find out what they've had happen to them, what has worked for them, and what didn't, and then take your knowledge in your own head before you spit something out of your mouth and formulate some sort of an opinion and maybe offer something, or at least asking more questions. Because I see as I was doing that, and I kind of I don't mentor, but I will. Some of the younger teachers in our area will ask me questions now. They'll come to me and I work with them a little bit. I say you're as you know you were 20 something teacher, and you learned from John, and you had a lot of stuff in your head that you felt like you had to get out. The young teachers are so eager to show people what they know that they could work. It could and have a drastic effect on their ability to help that person if they're not very careful, because they start over teaching or they start prescribing things that will not work for that individual.
I agree, and I think the thing I try to work on, because any Italian likes to talk too much, and I talk too much and I'm too loud. So I got two out of the two. So I try to really, I forget who it was, but I try to teach a golf lesson sometimes without even talking, and it really helps, because there is 100% teachers, and I'm 100% at fault, because I do this all the time, and I try to tone it down as best I can. And every year I get better and better at it. If you overcoach someone, it could be a problem. It could be a huge problem. So it's like, if this cue works, great, we're done. Like, we're just gonna like add some variability, add some randomization, whatever you got to do. Goldilocks it. You need to do the same thing this much more than the other day until the ball flight is reacting the way you want.
Mm-hmm.
But overcoaching, especially when you like to be a nerd. Like, I love being a nerd. I love understanding graphs. I love all these things. 3D is my wheelhouse. I really love all that kind of stuff. But you got to keep the crazy inside here, and like put it through like a filter, and so that way you don't overcoach somebody. And that's tough, especially when you're in a business where you have to show somebody that you know what you're talking about, but not be arrogant about that you know everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, it's a tough balance. Like, you got to tell a Fortune 500 CEO that this is the way to go, but you can't do it and be like, this is how you have to do it no matter what, or you're not going to get better. Like, there's certain things that you gotta like you gotta balance in that aspect.
Yeah, most of those guys and girls, men or women, that you're at that level, they are so they're going to do what you tell them to a T. They didn't get to that level in life by not
Mhm.
following the instruction of the people who they went to for help or guidance, and they are going to do it to it exactly. They're going to probably overdo it in many cases, and it's okay that you're wrong. I mean, here Sinclair
I've
the
been
other
wrong
day.
so many. Oh God, I've been wrong so many times. It's
Sinclair
fun.
the other day said, technology has showed him so much that what he was teaching 25 years ago, he wish he could tell those people, "Hey, come on back, I'll give you a lesson
Oh
for free."
God, how many
Because
bad golf lessons everybody's given in their life? God, I feel bad for some of the people. I'm sorry. I'll apologize officially right now. I'm sorry to all of you, even if that you were at Odessa National getting a golf lesson with me in Delaware. Like, I apologize
Yeah,
because
but that type A personality is going to do that thing until they wear their skin off their hands. So hopefully you give them the best information you can. But once you've done it long enough and you made enough mistakes, something in the back of your head is, as you said, you thought of that student's solution. 8:30 at night when you're home with your wife and say, "Hey, wait, you got to see this. I got to show this to you." She, okay, whatever,
no, she
whatever,
loved
Nick.
it.
I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Go ahead, knock
Well,
yourself
I mean,
out.
that's why sometimes you give golf lessons and that you almost sometimes give incomplete golf lessons. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. I don't think that you need all the answers to your problems right there because you have to self coach as well. You have to figure out what kind of works well for you with the guidance of your coach and your mentor, whoever it is. So yeah, it's there's a lot of, and I tell students, I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you right now, like, I don't know how you're going to react to this position. I've seen a lot of people react a better way, but you could prove me wrong really quick. And obviously, in golf, when you fix one problem, you can create another
Mhm.
because your body's trying to compensate and you're trying to find a way to fix a problem that's there. Okay. Your brain's not meant to repeat motions. That's not the way it works. There's error detection. It's part of like it's like your survivor kind of, I'll paraphrase. It's like your survivor gene. Like if I keep doing this, it's going to be bad. So I got to do something else to figure it out. So it's like, that's not the way it is. So it's a common thing. Incomplete golf lessons. Even the best in the world have told me that, man, this guy's hitting it right, and I don't know what I need to do. I need to figure out something, or he's going to drop me, and he's going to find another tour coach. Like I've heard that so many times, and they're like the best in the world at what they do. So
Mhm.
it gives everybody else hope to what they're doing, but it gives you calm to think that you don't have to be the end all be all right answer, the rainbow at the end of the brick road, whatever it is. You don't have to be that person. You just got to find some guidance to help your student out.
It is you're on social media. You follow this, and you've been around teaching long enough that you've seen some of these debates. Uh, you've had the chipping one recently. You've had many years ago the Alpha Wars, and now it seems like the one is how does the lead shoulder, does it move more down in the
Oh
swing?
my
Does it move
God,
lateral? So and I asked this to Sasha. I
it,
asked it
it
to
depends.
Yes, I asked it to Sinclair. That's exactly my answer. I'm going to ask you, not those in particular, but why is it, in your opinion, that you can take two very well respected and very good coaches, regardless of discipline,
Mhm.
fill in the blank of discipline that each one is in, whether they're competing or not, for this question is irrelevant. Why do you think that you can have two very well respected, very good coaches can see the exact same thing, can look at the exact same data, and come up with two completely opposite assessments?
Is that amazing? Honestly,
I sit there and
it
just
blows
shake
my
my head.
mind. It blows my mind. But it's like the steep and shallow thing within. I've learned a lot from Mayo. I learned a lot from Ridyard. I learned a lot from Parker McLaughlin. Like short game, I just find super intriguing because I think a pitch shot's harder than you think. To be honest, I think the full swing's a lot easier. I think a pitch shot is it's very difficult for the average person. It really is. But it's it's like some people need to shift their swing circle differently. Some people don't. Some people, need to move the shoulder more down and across to help them with their golf swing. Some people don't. But I also refer back to the pelvis motion as well because you're not just looking at this segment just within its own. There's other factors that influence that too. But when you look at data too, it's also like you got to understand too how the data is being read, what segments it's localizing, and from there, how is it gaining and giving you that information? So it's interesting because you could skew camera angles and make something look like
Mm-hmm.
something. You can, it's like someone asked me, should you sway in the golf swing? I'm like, well, a lot of people do. It's just a matter of how much and where your hand. There's not just like your shoulder has to move this way. That's certainty. I don't like that. Now, if I had to pick an answer, I would give you an answer, but because I've seen the majority of golfers react a certain way that is not the best, but some people just need to move their low point really forward and get the path into out and create a lot of depth in their backswing. Some people do, some people don't. So it's like, I think the better question is, what is the relationship between down and across that someone needs to help them be more efficient? Because I don't get in these wars. I don't have enough time to be on Instagram and fight these wars because I wouldn't be married if I did all that. Like sometimes I can't fight the Facebook and Instagram wars that everybody does. So I just listen. I'm like I'm like in the shadows, just kind of listening what people do, and I from there I derive my own conclusions based on the person that I have. Like it's just there's levels of doing this and this. It's just a matter of what you need. So I hate to not give you the answer of all answers, but it's like sometimes people read data and they're not understanding how it's actually being translated into the actual 2D version of the golf swing. And then from there, they can maybe get some skewed data and skewed understandings.
Yeah, that goes to what I was trying to explain earlier, where where science can be wrong. And I might do a. I think I told John this. I'm probably going to do a podcast on is science actually hurting your game? Like we talked about facet joints. If you try to turn more, you try to get a greater range of motion. I don't care how much you stretch, or if you have a joint that's destabilized, you can stretch all you want to. Those muscles aren't going to relax until that joint stabilizes again. That's just one. I can get to a whole bunch of different ones. It won't
Yeah,
waste.
I got 1,000
Yeah,
of them.
we could have hours long shows on I'm sure we have a very similar list, but um, it's in like okay, these coaches like I look at both of them like okay, you were at Open Forum 2 years ago when Joe and the short game and Parker were up there and they had the diagrams, and then James Ridyard is an audience and said, well, did you factor in this and this, and said,
I
well, the
thought
depth
about that the other
is
day.
wrong.
He's like, "That's
Right,
impossible. You
yeah, it's
can't do that."
impossible.
And then
So
it's like it was like the blank. It was like it's like there was a ghost in the room when he said that, and it was like the most hush. Like the open forum's never quiet. Like it's
you get your pin drop.
yeah, you hear a pin drop, and it was like even the TrackMan guy, all of them. It was like everybody just went dead quiet, and I'm
Well,
sitting next to Sean Foley too, and everybody was seriously. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, it was wild. And then it was like, of course, everybody's like, well, why does that make sense? And of course, no one said it. But Ridyard is such a brilliant mind. It was like, it made everybody second guess
mhm.
their lives, like at that point in time.
The thing that I would like to sit down and whether it's the chipping discussion, whether it's this new shoulder discussion, and have both on. And at one time, I was going to. I've reached out to Joe, and he's he gets so many requests to come on, but at least he sent me some info, and hopefully we'll have him on at some point. I'd like to reach out to Parker, but I would like to ask both of them, even if they came out at the same time. And have a very respectful debate, because I just shut one off if they got to be too loud. Um, what I would like, my first question to each one of them be: you obviously both had great success, and this could be with the stack and tilt and is it the AMG or is it ATG?
Oh,
Can't remember.
athletic motion golf, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'd ask them both of them the same question. You obviously had great success with your theory with a multitude of students. Have you made a differentiation on why that would work with them and not work with other people? Because if you take the chipping, Parker's obviously has success with his students being shallow. Joe's obviously, it's very well documented, has had a lot of success with his students being steep. First question I would ask is, Joe, have you looked at are most of the players that you're getting to be 12 down, are they steep in their swing as well? And Parker, are your players that you're having success with shallow in their swing? That's the first thing that comes into my mind. Why are they having success with certain people? And if they switch, would they have the same success? My theory is I don't think so, because they're people who gravitate, as you mentioned, there's many variables involved. And people who gravitate, and there's reasons that they're going to swing shallow, or the shoulder's going to come down, or
Mhm.
whatever is being argued at the time. Coaches are notorious for it. Um, they're going to gravitate towards one way or the other, and that basically likely because that's the way they are.
And it's like the golf swing. It's like in short game, right? You have ups and downs. You have shallows and steeps. You have all these things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
your job as a coach, based on the tendencies that they have, but also you got to keep in mind the conditions that they play too.
Yes.
Like people always forget that, you know, if you're playing and say in Texas and you're hitting a high golf ball, whatever, you're probably not going to play too well. There's a reason why, that's a reason why Ben Hogan hit snap hooks. He
Mm-hmm.
let it run, hit it hard under the wind. Okay. There's a reason why when I played golf at Hartfield National, I had to hit it low because it was 30 miles per hour all day. But then the minute I went to Hershey East and I had to hit high golf balls, my knockdown shot didn't work. It just didn't work. So part of it is that you have to understand who you're teaching. And I say this in my lessons all the time. I'm teaching you based on where you play. If you're playing Marion Golf Club where the greens are firm and fast and they're running 13s and it's elevated, all these things, I have to teach you how to hit a high enough golf ball to land on the green. And with a wedge shot, if you go to Valderrama, let's just say, and you're launching it below 30 degrees, you're not going to hold the green with the wedge, most likely. It's going to bounce off. So there's varying levels of what you're teaching and who you're teaching and the conditions that you're playing at. But to get back to the short game point, like, you know, you need to balance out the steeps and the shallows, the ups and the downs, and the lefts and the rights. You got to balance them out. Okay. If you have an imbalance of one thing, yeah, you could have a really good shot, say, on this condition. But if you take it to another condition and you do the same thing, you could maybe not work so well. So that's why I feel like you hear a lot of different types of things, because they're not wrong. I don't think that anybody's wrong in that sense. It's that they've had a lot of success with what they're doing and with who they're teaching and where they are, that, like, that's why maybe when you're chipping on bent and going to Bermuda, like, you got to think about it a little differently. It's not all the same. So that's why, like, if everybody did the same thing in every condition, they'd be fine. But that's why even a lot of I hear tour pros changing wedges when they go to Florida versus when they're on bent grass. So just like in the golf swing, in your backswing, you have ins and ups. In the downswing, you have down and outs. You got to balance them out. And if you have an imbalance, it's not going to work. I have people that I've gotten more shallow when it comes to chipping that drastically improved, but the club head is clearly behind the hands and they chip the lights out. Then I have another guy who the club head is outside the hands and he chips great. But if I flipped them and did the opposite, they would be the worst golfer in the world. They would chip like a 90 handicap. So I think the balance is more important than anything else. But that's why you see these people do this. But, how about you post? It's funny. It's like, how about we don't post the success? Let's post the failure. Let's post someone struggling. And then we can kind of get an idea of, like, because we all see behind Instagram, like, we don't see the perfect shots all the time. Believe me. When we see all the perfect shots, we don't see, like you said on TV, we see all the good shots. We don't see the guy 3-putting from 5 feet. We don't see that. Like, it happens. And I think
happens more than you
happens
think.
way more than you think, 100%. So I think that's where you get a lot of this butting heads and this healthy debate. It's not bad. It's just, I think everybody, if you don't agree that there's steeps and shallows, there's up and downs and left and rights and ins and outs, and you got to balance them out, then I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
Yeah, you just got to work with what the golfer has.
Yeah,
You can't silo everybody. I know that Joe has had a lot of success with, and I fully understand where he's coming from.
me too. I get it. Believe
And
me, I get it. Really do. I really do. But for me, like when I hit a flop shot, like when I get super shallow, it really helps me. I hit it super well. I almost feel like the heel is on the ground and I hit the heel on the ground.
mhm.
I drop kick it 3 inches behind the ball and I hit a high spinner, no problem. But he would look at me and be like, why isn't your VSP around 80? But I mean, but when I do that, I hit it horribly. I hit it awful. So it's like, you should have, like, Alex Buckner helps me with my short game. He's a really, really great guy. He's over across the pond, and we do a 3 drill. We do a compression drill, we do a pitch drill, and we do a slider drill. So we try to find what really works for you and what doesn't work, because you get every part of the spectrum within your short game. So I know if I'm in a really hairy lie around the green, maybe I don't like what people like to do, handle low, get the heel in and stop really quick. I like the, wide cut, and the VSP would be crazy on that thing. And I hit it great, but the next person you show that to might not work, but that's why you got to have a lot of tools in your toolbox for it.
Yes, you have to know how to work through all of them. To take somebody, hey, does this work? Let's tweak it this way. They might fall as a hybrid in between all of them.
Yeah.
But if you're going to help them, you got to know it all. That's why it does take to master a craft. It takes a long time.
Yeah. And I think you're, even, like, when it comes to the information and you're learning and stuff like that, you're always going to continue to learn something and you're going to change your idea. I've changed my mindset about short game probably the last 5 years more than anybody else, because I went through Wedge Matrix and I really enjoy, like, how do you, like, depth control. If I had one thing about short game more than anything, is control
Yep.
your depth. I think if someone understands, the lengtheners and the shorteners and all this stuff in your short game, you're going to chip better no matter what. And you could be steep or shallow when you do that. Again, to an extent, I'm not saying like get Scooby shallow, all that kind of, whatever it is. But it's like, depth control, if I had to pick one thing in short game to improve everything, is that if you know how to control your depth, the depth of your circle, you're going to do a really good job.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
really will.
It's funny how you brought up teaching people from different areas because when I spent a fair amount of time with Doc Stu McGill when he was in town, fair amount meaning of probably we spent a full day together. Which the fact that he gave me that much time when he's here on vacation was very lucky, very blessed that he was able to do that. But one question I asked him when he came on was if if he saw differences, and this goes to your point about geographic differences, were there differences between European players, if you go back to the 80s and 90s, because they had a very, if you remember the Ian Woosnams and even Bernard Longers, they had and a Darren Clark would be a more modern-ish version. They
Yeah,
covered the ball very well with their chest and their trail side. Whereas American golfers, because the different, when mostly, as you said, you're hitting the ball higher for the most of the traditional courses. You got to get the ball up on hit it higher and land it soft on the green so that the movement of the body was different. So the American golfers tended to have, let's say, at the reverse C, and the European golfers tended to have more of a flat T finish. And I asked him if he saw a big difference based off geographics, and he said yes.
absolutely.
And as far as era that somebody grew up playing in, that he saw differences. So and you illustrate that as well, based off somebody where they're from, how are they trying to hit the ball to play the best they can? How's that going to affect them?
Absolutely. And I'll use an example too. The best man of my wedding, my best friend, who shockingly enough is having a daughter on the same day as my wife is due with my son, which I already joked to
Congratulations,
him.
by the way.
I'm
Saw
like,
that.
thanks. I'm joking. I'm like, I already got a husband for you. You're locked up. I got you. We're good. But he's the director of golf at Old Marsh, and I've been coaching him for a while. And he played in probably a week straight of crazy windy conditions, and he was lighting the ball up before the windy conditions. Then the minute the wind stopped, like all hell broke loose. And he's like, I'm hitting the ball off, but I'm like, you know why, right? And I'm like, he's like, no. I'm like, well, you had to lean on something at some point to get that ball down because you hit a really high golf ball. So you're going to find a way as a really talented player to like maybe move so laterally to the point you got to really lock this thing down and launch it low. And his tendency is to move too much a little that way. And he gets some like handle dragging kind of like push cuts and blocks. So it's like, I said, you got to go back to like getting some like go hit some downwind balls. I say go on the other side of the range, hit some downwind balls, and get that ball back up, and then everything's going to probably get a little bit better. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the constraints that you are have a huge effect in your golf swing and how that motor pattern is going to develop. It's I see it way too often.
Well, I think even if you look at it, there's some theories out there. You take Fred Couples and you take Nick Faldo. Fred Couples grew up in the Pacific Northwest. It's very soft. You had to fly it as far as you could.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, his name's Boom Boom. You look at Faldo, he grew up and the range was not very long. And I don't remember what it was on the size, but it was not very wide. He grew up more or less hitting 7 irons. So here's a guy 6'3", 230 pounds that's a, considering his size and everything else, is a short knocker. And here you got Freddie, not small by any means, but much smaller than Faldo, and he's launching it.
Ropes it.
He's killing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, environment plays a huge role that I think people might not give enough credit to.
Yeah, and that's why like the skill coaching lines with Dunnigan really gave me an idea of constraints, physical, environmental, equipment, time. That's part of the questions I ask before I teach anybody. How much time do you have to practice? Have you had any injuries? What sports did you play? The first 10 minutes is an interview, minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I like to tell people, you might hate the first 10 minutes, but hopefully you're going to enjoy the next 50 because I need I teach the person, not golf. So you got to really get an understanding of all these things. So if someone's, playing on, even like you look at putting and how the stimps were so slow, putting has changed. You got to get the ball above the grass. Now it's like you got to really control launch because when the greens are so fast, you can't do what you did a while ago. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why when you putt on really slow greens forever, your acceleration profile is going to drastically change. And there's a reason why you say putt better on certain greens and you're really bad at others because you're so built and programmed to hit this ball hard because you had to get it to the hole. It's you see it every single day on the lesson team, every day.
Ironically enough, I was just talking to my dad yesterday, and I grew up in Michigan, and it's very wispy grass that we played out there. And we used to have this shot. We had a cut shot, and it was basically where you let the handle on your soft high shots around the greens. The club head would pass the handle. You'd flip your hands and you cut it. You'd have a little cut across and let the club face past the butt of the club. When I came down here in the Bermuda grass, and
Mm-mm.
it's so hard, I bladed for a month and a half because it hit in that Bermuda grass and it would just grab it and I couldn't
Yep.
flip through there. So yeah, and it took me a good 6 months to learn how to play out of Bermuda grass. Putt on Bermuda grass. It took me about 10 years to figure that one out. But
I think everybody's trying to figure that out right still right
yes, I basically tell people who come here, I say just whatever you read and break, especially if you're from the Northeast or Midwest and you're used to great bent grass, I say just factor in if you're going with the grain, factor in another 7 to 10%. If you're against the grain, subtract it, and that's the best you're going to do. It'll save your mentality at least while you're here on vacation playing.
now. Hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to go crazy. Same with
Go.
me out in the West Coast with POA. God, it stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah, it'll get you. Believe me, it'll get you.
Anything that you have seen or you have in your mind that you've been working on that an idea on coaching or a theory that if you were a presenter at open forum, they would think that you're crazy.
Whew, that's a good one. That's a great one. I don't know. John and I talk about we think drivers are made wrong sometimes. Um,
Also,
well, the shaft's going to bend and deflect a lot, right? So that's,
mm-hmm,
I mean, I think this is how the conversation, I think, when I was with Finney and all these guys at Gears and Michael Neff, when we talk about club fitting and we talk about deflection of the shaft, right? So the longer the club, the more it's going to droop essentially, right?
mm-hmm,
Y angle changes. So, you understand why, like, a lot of people's favorite clubs are like they're hybrids. It's set really upright. You have a little bit of deflection, the ball can draw, but then you get to a driver, they can't draw it with their life. So I think it's really smart that people have adjustments with their driver, upright, flat, whatever it is. But it makes me think that when you have, especially people when they make the shaft longer and longer and longer, that if you add more, say, droop to the shaft, maybe it could say change that lie angle enough and change the face enough that you slice the ball, say, maybe more. So I'm like I said, I'm not. I think I need to learn a lot more about club fitting. I feel like I have a decent grasp of a lot of things, but it's just some of the conversations I have. It's like, do people hit the ball first? Like really silly like ideas. Like, do people actually hit the ball first when they hit the golf ball? It's like that kind of dumb stuff. And like, it's like people like, yeah, they do. And I'm like, okay, well, how many times have you hit the ground before the ball? You felt like the ball didn't get to the hole and it actually got there. Or, why is your driver this long where maybe if the lie angle and loft is different, or if you're like a hooker of the golf ball and you actually flatten the lie angle more, you can use that to your advantage. So I don't know enough and I don't have the resources with me to be like, I can dive into this and put sensors and localize the shafts and like see exactly what's going on to that extent. Club
mm-hmm.
fitting, I need to learn more about. But just when you see the change in iron configuration for more weight, stronger lofts, and all these things, are you actually helping your golfer? You're actually hurting your golfer. And some of these things just kind of peak up every now and then. And that's why, like, you get some golf balls that you hit like a 180-yard shot, 180-yard shot, and then all of a sudden it goes 200. Like, what the hell just happened? So, and it makes it more difficult for people to fit when you have your pitch and wedge at like 40 degrees, and you're like, wait, you got to have two gap wedges and a 60 and a sand, and you're telling me that this pitch and wedge is like a baseline 9 iron. It's like it makes it very difficult for a lot of people. So I guess I don't have any crazy things. Don't worry. That's when I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm like, oh, I got to write this thing down. But nothing to where it's like it would really turn and twist some heads. Unfortunately, the driver conversation was just interesting. It was just very interesting to me about how drivers are made, the length that they're getting longer and longer because, yeah, we want to hit it farther. But, if you can hit it farther, great. But if you don't know where it's going, then you got no chance. You got zero chance.
Yeah, most people who aren't very good athletes and strong enough, if they get a driver that's too long, it's actually going to slow them down. I spent 3 years doing that, and I would show these people like, no, there's no way I'm hitting this. I'll hit it longer, and et cetera, et cetera. It's okay. Here, let's put you on the speed. And sure enough, 3 miles an hour on average. Uh, now that's an n equals one. That's not to say everybody out there's going to be 3 miles an hour, but
Yeah.
I'm talking people 65 and older. I'm not talking 25 or 35. I'm talking about some people who are thought that again, when science is correct, physics says you got a longer lever arm, you can generate more speed because the head's going to travel in a further distance. Yes, that's
Mhm.
true. If you can move that object fast enough and you can be stable enough in your own body, which most 65, 70-year-olds aren't, they've been
Mhm.
sitting at a desk for 40 years. You're not going to be able to get that thing moving fast enough, and then it's actually going to slow down because you're leaking energy all over the place.
Yeah, when you're and also when your body when you're in so much of this like forward flexion and your shoulders are so round and your chest is there and this club's flying farther and farther away from you, you're not going to be able to do anything to bring that club back, and it's just going to be worse. So it's like, yeah, I wish I had like the thought that blew up the internet. I just don't. I really wish I did, because that'd be a fun conversation I'd love to have with you. But
No, I'm just always curious with good teachers
yeah,
what they're working on because I've learned that the next great idea always comes from the periphery. It's not from what's being discussed within because everybody's focused on it. They usually either get too bogged down in what they know, as we talked about earlier. It's what you know that gets you in trouble, not what you don't.
Mhm.
And the idea, anyone on the periphery thinking of something is usually unencumbered by common thought or too much input by others, and then they're free to continue to think. They're able to watch, they're able to use their own experience, they're able to look at others, especially if you have a little access, because you have too much, you're going to be influenced by other data or other people's insight. If you kind of little bit on your own but have access to other things where you can kind of test yourself, then that's usually when the next great thing comes from the outside, not the inside.
Yeah, and and we talked about a little bit Matthew, but working off some standard deviations and understanding how the range in which somebody moves, and understanding like, if you move your pelvis this way, yeah, great, you're going to get great one side, but the other side's going to be at fault. Or,
Mm-hmm.
if you have, if your spine is moving a certain way and you have, people all, different facet joints, some people might have an extra vertebrae, some people might not. They might have great range of motion. Maybe they have some issues when it comes to where their lower T's are because they're closer to the lumbar and how they're made than you think. Like all these little things. So I think the standard deviation is great, because then you start understanding a spectrum of ideas, not just like the singularity of like, this is what it is and this is how it's going to be and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think as you look at these panel members, and I've gotten to know them, you know them, especially in your area. You've got some great teachers, and you've been you reach out to a lot of people to learn from. Is when you see some of these seasoned, I'll call them seasoned. So if John listened to this one, John,
Easy.
you would be a seasoned coach. That's a respect. I'm a seasoned coach. I shaved my beard off. I had more salt than pepper, so I said time to shave it off. So I would guess I would consider myself seasoned now that teaching
They,
30 some years. But you see the look on their face and that they know a lot, but they also know the nuances exactly as you just described. You need just a minor tweak from, if they're twins, you need a minor tweak from one to the other, and it could make their game just go like this, just take
yep.
off. And if you did it with the other twin, it could send them on a downward spiral. So
Oh God.
they know how to utilize that, and they're not ever going to be so definitive that they're going to argue a point to death, because
No.
they know, they've learned that there are modifications to the rules that work for people that don't work for others.
100%. I mean, talk about that constantly with other coaches. Constantly, other coaches. Like it, you have to think that way. I don't think, if you want to be a great coach, because as I said, I'm very competitive. I don't want to be good. I want to be great. Like I want to teach the best in the world. But don't get me wrong. I don't lose sight at teaching the 2015 handicap, because 9 times out of 10, that's my favorite golf lesson.
Mm-hmm.
They have more fun on the lesson tee a lot of time than the really good golfer, because they're caught up in their themselves and trying to really improve in that type of sense, because they want perfection. Okay, the 50-20 just wants to be a little bit better. But if we all had that mindset, it'd be very helpful. But I feel like if you don't think that way and understand it that way, then I think you're just going to have a large group of people that you're just not going to be able to help, because you're not willing to deviate from your
Mm-hmm.
strong beliefs in what you're actually coaching to the majority of your golfers.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a few minutes left. We can do an emergency
Uh,
nine.
I'm good. Yeah,
All
emergency
right.
nine. I'm in.
All right. First and last one. Everybody gets it. They're the same from every episode I've ever done that we've done this, and everything in between. We kind of move around and change up questions, so it just wraps up the show with a lot of fun. Um, you're playing in the member guests, and they're going to get the crowd pumped up to watch this shootout. What song are you going to have them play as you walk up to your first shot?
Oh, already Frank Sinatra, My Way. Shocker,
Spoke,
right? Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
Italian from the Northeast, right? St. Frank Sinatra. That's a
Hey.
surprise. My way. All right, I got it. If you could put a restaurant in your kitchen, anyone you want to, what are you going to put in there?
The name of a restaurant?
No, no, you could put any restaurant or chain in your kitchen, so you could access that food anytime you wanted to. What restaurant would you put in there?
All right. So if you ever eat in Delray, Florida, Delray Beach, Florida, there's a restaurant called Tremonti's. Of course, it's an Italian restaurant. It is out of this world good. If I had that in my kitchen, I could die and go to heaven happy. I really could. It's that good. It's phenomenal.
Cool. I'll have to check that out next time I'm down there. Hopefully, I'm going to visit Ben Shear if he ever gets his studio up and running. He quits gallivanting around the country with Berger and Pavone. I'm like, come on, Ben, I need your help. Those guys are
We
already
need help here.
multimillionaires. But when I get down there, I'll try to check that out.
It's amazing. You won't regret it. Get a reservation like well ahead.
Okay,
You
will
know.
do. Tremonti's, Trimantis.
Yeah, Tremonti's. Yep.
Got it. Who would be on your golf coach's Mount Rushmore?
I mean, I'd have to put John Dunigan. I mean, I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for him. I mean, he's like my second father, 100%. Ooh, that's a good one. Harvey Pennick.
Mm.
I'm going to try to throw some haymakers out here. All right, so you got John Dunigan, you got Harvey Pennick. Wow, that's great. That's a tough question.
You'll probably wake up tonight and say, "Oh shit, I should have said this."
Like, oh, I should have said
You're gonna
him.
message me. Hey, can I change my answer?
All right, so we'll go Harvey Pennick, we'll go John Dunigan. Um, we're gonna go, because I think he's just brilliant. I'm gonna do a short game one again. So for me, these answers, a lot of them are like now, just
Mm-hmm.
because of how I started my trajectory. Man, I think I might have to go James Ridger. That guy is just unbelievably smart. I mean, he really changed the way that I think about short game. I mean, he really flipped my understanding of it in a really awesome way. And then the last one, I would say, I mean, Jim McLean. I mean, it's tough to argue. It's tough to argue what he built and what he talked about in his books, and how you're seeing that type of stuff happen even in technology, and like almost what you see without it's pretty amazing what he did. So I'd have to throw probably him up there. I'm definitely going to think of one or two that I'm like, darn, I had my one chance and I forgot. But I'm going to throw those guys up there.
Well, everyone's been different. I think McLean and Butch have been on everybody's. But I asked that question because it's so interesting to see the different answers, and then more so the reasoning. Like you said, James completely changed your mind on how you approach short game, so, and that's more or less what the question is for. See who people pick and why, not just one or the other. So
Yeah.
that's why that question has been very interesting. So I guess I'll keep that one.
There you go.
Most used app on your phone.
Golf app or just any app?
Any.
Probably Instagram. I hate to say it. It's a terrible answer, and I'm ashamed to say it, but it's like my business page. I have to say it. It's like,
Well, mine too. I'm constantly looking who's got something that I need to have on the show, so I'm right there
that.
with you.
Yeah, I would say that or Coach Now. It's one of the two, but I would have to say Instagram. It's like when that thing comes up saying you've been on your phone for 3 hours today. I'm like, yeah, it was 6 hours yesterday.
Don't worry, you're probably in a minority on that one.
Yeah.
Your best or your favorite purchase in the last year under $1,000 can be anything. Can be a golfing device, can be something for your house, your car, gadget, clothing, whatever. What
purchase under 100 or
No, under
$1,000?
under 1,000.
Okay. Man, you got some good questions here. I don't think I don't think I've ever been asked that one before. Just like I would say, I'm a Jordan golf guy. My low G1 retros, the black and red ones, the white
Okay.
ones, that's that was well under it. But it was. I'm not a materialistic guy. Like it's my house would look like a hospital waiting room if it wasn't for my wife. I mean, it really would. There'd be nothing on the walls, and I'd have probably a couch, a TV, and a fridge. Because what else do you need as a guy? You don't need anything else.
That's right.
So
You need a
I would say
comfortable chair and a big screen TV.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. So I would say, yeah, I would probably say my Jordan golf shoes. I mean, those low G1s are just, and I wear them every day. And when you're the first golf pro to bring, when you're the first lead instructor teaching bro to bring Jordan golf shoes to Marion, that'll get someone to turn their heads pretty quick. And wear black pants as an Italian, so that's a little different too.
Yeah, yeah. Jason Sutton's a big AG1 guy, or
They're
yeah,
great. Jordan golf shoes are.
AJ, and every time one comes on, like they had Mickelson's what he was wearing today, and that's why I had to text it to Jason, say, "Are you going to get these too?" And I found a Louis Vuitton. Someone made a Louis Vuitton the same, and I'm
Oh
always
yeah,
texting them saying, "Hey, when are you going to show up with these?"
yeah.
He's like,
I think I got like 30 pairs of Jordan golf shoes. And a lot of them are low G1s that are just different colors because you gotta if you can't operate, you decorate. You gotta look good at least when you hit a ball out of bounds or whatever you do.
a couple more, then I'll let you go. I'm
Yeah.
sure your wife's wondering where you are. What's worse, a well done steak or iron covers?
Oh, well done steak.
I think that's the leader in the clubhouse.
Oh yeah, it's not. I mean, iron head covers, you can justify that. A well done steak, you're crazy. You're insane. I mean, that's
That's
awful.
sacrilegious.
That's sacrilegious. Oh God. That's what I tell you. If you go to a steak place, you get a well done steak, you might as well just order ketchup too and just call it a day. Like it's
Exactly.
yeah.
I've got a pit boss. I got it right before COVID. And as we were talking earlier, once you start cooking your own food and you do good, it's like, why would I ever go out and spend 5 times as much? But I'll cook fillets, and I was never a griller. And they come out perfect. I mean, you just cook the temp and you take it off, let it rest, boom, you're done.
Oh yeah.
And I'll get these things that I cut it open and look just like the picture. And she'll put A1 or some ketchup or
Uh,
something. I go, what are you doing? You're done. I'm not cooking you any more steak because you just ruined it.
Yeah, I would say if you want a second answer for under 1,000, my cast iron skillet was amazing. Such a good purchase. Love that
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yeah,
So
anything
there's my
cooking.
one B.
Yeah, and for me, anything cook. When I had got injured and sick and couldn't play golf, cooking became my hobby. I put all my passion from golf into cooking. It turned out good.
And I
So
love cooking. I love cooking. I'm the cook. I'm the
good for
cook in the
you.
family. I love it. It's my favorite.
Let's see. Hollywood calls you. They said, Nick, we've been watching your career, for a long time. We're going to make a movie about you, but we're going to let you pick who plays you in the movie. Who are you going to have them cast?
All right, this is not me saying this because I've gotten this actually a bunch of times. I've been told I look like Robert Downey Jr. sometimes, but it's like I think they're way off. But I guess Robert Downey Jr.
Well, he's a good one. He's a great actor.
Yeah, I thought
Very,
you said
very
if
good choice.
Hollywood called you, I'd probably hang up the phone. But I'd be like,
I usually I maybe need to change that to if they let your wife pick who's going to play you, maybe that's a softer way to say it to let the people
yeah,
understand and not feel so bad.
yeah, like yeah, Hollywood, yeah, click.
Let's see your go-to hot dog condiment.
Ooh, uh, ketchup, and if there's no ketchup, onions.
Mm, I'm with you. Grew up in Detroit. Coney dogs were the thing back then. They're on every corner and every strip mall. So kind of hard to. Ketchup as a kid was always mine. By the time I got to college and we're going out till 2 or 3 in the morning, coming home, stopping at Coney,
Mm-hmm.
that was it. Chili, onions, and mustard.
Load it up.
Yep,
100% load it up. You can't. There's no such thing as too much garlic or too much onions. No
that's right.
such thing.
Uh, in your opinion, the last one, who, as far as golf's concerned, who's the GOAT? Who's greatest of all time?
Like player.
Yes, player.
Oh God, I've actually flipped my answer a long time ago. I thought it was Jack, 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 and I don't think there's a wrong answer if you pick
No,
one of
there's
these.
not.
I don't think there's one. I got to say Tiger. I mean, what he did for that long a period of time. When you talk about, I mean, what he did and how he did it and what he did for the game, because the goat is not only what you did on the court or on the course, is what you do a little bit off it. And just like that's why I'm a huge Jordan golf buff. If you hear me,
Hmm.
Jordan, give me a call. I wear your golf shoes. I love them. But like, it's like Sunday Red. It's like there's patent names from what you did from each sport, and Tiger's I mean, and the wave of new golfers that he brought is just crazy. I mean, he made golf like a sport and popular even after, you see the guys that started it off. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name already. Who hit the tee shot today? I'm losing it. It's like past my bedtime. He wears all black. He played with Jack Nicklaus
Oh,
and
Gary Player.
oh my God, I'm like, I know, like I'm blanking right now. I'm blanking. Yeah, like it's like Gary Player was the athlete, and Tiger just took it to the nth degree.
Mm-hmm.
Really did.
Yeah, he was. It's a generational talent, and I remember when Scott Bossett was on. I said I'm very curious to see, and he said he didn't think that we would see it, that the next generational talent will bring. That Tiger took it from, if you go back, Jack took it from Bobby Jones. Tiger obviously took it from Nicklaus, and then the next player, what they do, is going to be unfathomable, at least for me after watching what Tiger did. To see somebody equal or eclipse that will be unbelievable. It's almost unfathomable they can do it with all the information that's out there that everybody has access to now that they might not have had before, or what it would take to sacrifice in order to do that.
Yeah, I got another one for you. I'll ask you a question. If you had, what is your you think has the best golf swing, and what do you think who has the most unique golf swing?
For me, aesthetically watching it, I think Nelly Korda. I could sit there and watch her on a loop and just, I mean, the fact that she's a very good looking, tall, blonde woman and it's beside the point. It's just her swing. It's just the rhythm, the tempo, without even getting into the mechanics of it. It's just, I could watch that all day long. Um, the most unique, uh, I would either say Jim Furyk or Matt Wolff, at least from aesthetic perspective.
Yeah,
I know when George put him on force plates, they're off the charts.
he broke them, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, the differentiation, but as we talked this whole show, the differentiation between what science is and what the eye's seeing, for me, those are very unique. I think there's some young kids now who have some unique swings. That one kid, Dr. Rose and Dave had him out of TPI where he hits it a mile. I think he was from Europe.
U.S. amateur champion. Yeah,
That kid too.
Yeah.
That I guess he went to the bathroom on number 13 today and it down by the creek. I was scrolling through Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, and he was doing an interview. He said, "Hey, I had to go, man. I didn't realize that
you gotta go. You gotta go.
There was no bathrooms. Like we walked past it, and he got in his explanation. But is it Iacono or someone from Europe that hits it just a mile, but his wedge game was
you're talking the 6'8" guy.
Yeah, I think that's
yeah. I know you're talking about.
With that big dip. Like who would ever teach a dip like that? I mean, but
his verticals are off the chart.
Yes, but his wedge game was because he's so used to going down. I think they did a TPI series of 40 minutes on YouTube with him, and he just kept going down. So his wedge game for his level was not where it needed to be. And they said, yeah, it's great in your full swing, but you got to be coming up sooner with your wedges. So those kind of would be my answers for that.
Love it. I think they're great. You can't go wrong with Nelly Court. You can't go wrong with that.
No. Give those a lot of thought because I know what I've been on other shows and how am I going to tweak my questions, and I know I'm going to get asked some stuff, so I try to have that ready in the back of my brain.
So I'll give you the first Irish superstar golf swing that will remind you it is the Matt Wolff, but he cuts the ball. Look up Gary Bruin.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah, that's one I saw from like the archives. I'm like, ooh, that guy, he just stomps on the ball.
And I heard he flushed it all the time.
Flusher, certified flusher, 100%.
I learned that lesson the hard way. First mini tour event I went to. It's hard to believe it's over 24 years ago. Walking down the range and some of these guys, he swings. I'm like, how the hell did that guy get out here? I get in, I shoot 71, they shoot 64.
Yeah.
Learn that lesson very quick. You do not ever pass judgment when
we teach efficiency, not bias and looks. We teach efficiency. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm. Nick, it's been great. If anyone can you take in outside lessons? Are you able to do that at Marion, or do you?
I am, but I'm just I'm taking really tournament golfers. So if you're a junior on height, if you're like a junior golfer playing in competitive events, high school, you're looking to play college, if you're a professional golfer, highly competitive tournament golfer, looking to take that big next step. That's really the only clientele I'm taking at the moment. But yeah, that's really all I'm doing at the time right
And
now.
we'll have, as we always do, one-click links to all your sites and your websites and everything. But go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you. They can reach out to you, all that fun stuff. If they have questions or they have kids they want you to work with, or etc.
Yeah, so the easiest way is to reach me on Instagram, Nick Iacono Golf. You can reach me on my email. It's niacono7@gmail.com. Don't try to reach me on Facebook. I'm only on there for birthdays for the most part. But other than that,
Smart.
yeah, exactly. But other than that, yeah, that's the easiest way to reach me.
Perfect. So everybody, like I said, as always, that'll be one click in the summary. Nick, I can't thank you enough. It's been a lot of fun. We'll have to have you on again, just to solve all the rest of the problems in the coaching world and everywhere else. Maybe next time we'll include some econ talks,
Oh
figure out
boy,
how to fix the economy.
macro and micro.
Yes.
I'm about to just dig back in the filing cabinet right now. Yeah, I would love to be back on, Pete, and thank you for having me on. It's been a great conversation.
Anytime. Everyone, thanks for checking us out again. We'll see you next time.